Ever heard of the term rotoscoping? Well, if you ever played such titles like Prince of Persia or Another World, you probably did. It's an animation technique where the artists trace over live footage frame by frame to give the animation smoothness and authenticity. There were a few games that utilized this technique, like the ones I mentioned a moment ago, but today we're focusing on a title by Delphine Software International, Flashback, also known as Flashback: The Quest for Identity in the US. Flashback was released in 1992 for the Amiga home computers and later ported to, well, pretty much everything. MS-DOS, Acorn, Archimedes, Genesis and Super Nintendo, Sega CD, 3DO, CDI, Macintosh, the Atari Jaguar, and even such device like the FM Towns Japanese personal computer. Flashback was a cinematic platformer. What this commonly meant is that the physics in the game and the player movement are realistic, and your character is very squishy, sometimes dying from a single hit. They're a lot more slower paced than the regular platform games too. Flashback begins with the Delphine logo, followed up by an animated cinematic depicting our current unknown and unnamed protagonist escaping from the evil dudes. The animated cutscenes have this very specific style where everything looks like it's made from low poly 3D objects. It's a very distinct aesthetic, very iconic to Delphine. After that, you're dropped into the main menu. From here, you don't really have a lot of options. You can start a new game, change the difficulty under the skill menu, enter a level password to continue from a specific level, watch the info screen for quick instructions on how to play the game, watch a demo recording, or quit. But why would you quit? I recommend checking out info on the controls first, as they take a while to get used to, and I also love those old school instruction screens. Don't know why, but I really miss those. Starting the game will greet you with a short introduction cutscene of our hero waking up and clumsily dropping a cube somewhere below. Once you get the cube and use it, you're given a little bit of a backstory on our hero and you're ordered to meet Ian, who will restore your memory. The whole premise of the game is that you're Conrad, and you discover the binoculars that measure molecular density. And it turns out it also detects shape-shifting aliens. So it's actually a lot like They Live, only more sci-fi. The aliens kidnap you, erase your memory, but you escape, leading up to the events of the intro. Now that you started the game, it's time to learn the controls and whoops! The first step is a doozy. I actually have no idea how to explain the controls properly. Conrad moves in very specific pre-calculated movements. Tap the arrow key in the direction he's facing, he'll take a single step. A single tap in the opposite direction will turn him around. Tapping up will make you jump straight up with no control of the character in the air, unlike traditional platformers, where you have full control in mid-air. Basically, the character's movement set is very realistic. If you want to jump forward, you're gonna need a running start. You can climb up or down ledges and you should be careful of falling. Bones do break. You can also pull out your weapon using space, which again changes how you move. With the weapon in hand and setting up, Conrad moves like the secretest of badass agents. And while crouched, he does pretty sweet dodge rolls. Basically, you're gonna need a moment to get used to the controls, but they do make sense in the context of the game. And it's fairly easy to die. Death will set you back to the beginning of the level, unfortunately. There are save points though, but they only work for the play session. There's no permanent save game solution, only passwords and checkpoints. What bugs me a little bit is that at first I got a little confused and was unsure if I saved my game or not. Conrad makes the same animation of turning around to face the save button as any other item in the game, but also the same animation when he uses an item from his inventory. So yeah, unless you see the game saved message, you're probably pressing the wrong key. Another thing that sorta annoys me is that the controls seem to queue up the next command. It's a little confusing because when you get hit while holding the gun, Conrad falls down, gets up and pulls out his gun again. However, if during this animation you press spacebar because you might think that he won't pull out his gun again, he'll pull it out at the end of the animation and then hide it immediately again. During this confusion you might get hit again and be completely lost whether your character had the gun pulled out or not. It confused me at the beginning, but it's another thing you can get used to. The game has 7 levels, with the last one being pretty much an extension of the 6th one. You'll be going through jungles, cities, secret bases, alien planets, and attend the Death Tower. Almost no level is the same, each one has its own unique style and the environments look amazing. There's a lot of diversity to be found. Awesome colors, details, and the overall level design is really great. I think my least favorite one is actually the Death Tower. It's supposed to have that glass tower look, but it sort of looks repetitive and ends up pretty bland. Through the levels you'll solve puzzles and fight enemies of increasing difficulty. With the puzzles not really being that hard, the enemies can get ridiculously hard later on in the game, and the aliens near the end of the game are a freaking nightmare. Thank God for save states on emulators. Levels are full of switches and keys, and I do adore the little animations and jingles when you exchange items, pick them up, or just recharge your shields. Those never get old. I also love the little jingles and the music during cutscenes, but that's about it. Music is pretty much non-existent throughout the levels. You only get a few ambient sounds in the background and that's all. It's a shame, really. But there was also a CD re-release of the game for various systems, and one of them being on the Sega CD had CD audio tracks for each level and even some okay voice acting.
Hey, it's me. Hi, Conrad. You must be wondering how you recorded this message with him.
The drawback, unfortunately, is that most of the CD versions had remade cutscenes into 3D pre-rendered ones, which just look bad and don't fit the game at all, in my opinion. Oh, except the Jaguar version, that one apparently had original cutscenes. What? These CD releases of the game are really confusing. But in conclusion, Flashback is a darn good cinematic platformer, and its biggest issue I have is the difficulty level that could quickly feel overwhelming. It's a game with pretty simple story, but it also has a lot of atmosphere, the environments look awesome, and the cutscenes are pretty cool. Only thing that might be off-putting is the difficulty spikes toward the end, but besides that, Flashback is a classic that I'd recommend you to try if you get the chance. And if you enjoyed this video, why not subscribe? I do more retro reviews, I cover some indie games, and if you want to know what's happening on the channel, follow my Twitter. I'll see you next time. See ya!